On the application. Okay, that's fine. I just didn't want to not call on you. Yeah, I'm not even sure most people were like aware that there was a plan with it. I think most members. Okay. Just throw in caliper occasionally. Ready?
You ready? Mayor, are we ready? Grant, are we ready? Thumbs up? Okay. Like to call the meeting of the Bexley Tree and Public Gardens Commission to order and call the roll. Charlie Flower. Mary McMahon. Here. Susan Quintens here. Sheila Straub. Jim Wilson.
Here.
Celeste Williams.
Here.
Linda Zubnik. Barb Giller, our alternate, is out of town. Audrey Young.
Here.
And then our ex officio members, Ellen Bowden and Larry Hellman, are not with us. But we have fabulous city staff here. Grant Archer.
Here.
Karen Volker, staff consultant. Here, Karen? Here, okay. Turn your microphone. Mayor Kessler. Thank you. And Matt Klingler is here, just stepped out for a moment, as they say. So we have a quorum. I'm going to appoint Audrey Young as a voting alternate to replace Charlie Flower, who has not come yet. I'm looking for approval of the minutes of October 16th, 2024. I apologize for the late notice on those. Jordan did a great job of transcribing them and I have reviewed them.
Their approval.
All right. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? A motion has been made and seconded that we approve the minutes of our meeting of October 16th as emailed. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstain? They are approved. Do we have any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, we will go forward with our first order of business, which is the review of landscape applications. Mr. Wilson.
Let me briefly review our procedure. So everyone should be aware that our meetings are videotaped and available on the Bexley.org website within a few days. And that website can be accessed by anyone, anywhere. So you're duly cautioned. As commission members, we do not comment or discuss the findings of other commissions, nor do we comment on subjects under review from other city commissions. As a commission, we will not be party to negative or disparaging comments about city staff, elected officials, appointed officials, or city consultants or other commission members. Comments presented today should be germane to the subject at hand. You all know that I'll do my best to keep you germane, so please stay on topic. If in the chair's view, any presentation is trending to be inflammatory or confrontational, We'll recess for 10 minutes, regain our composure, and proceed with our business. So for the applicant, just our procedure, which is somewhat similar to other commissions, but just so you're aware, we'll have a brief presentation by our staff consultant, but not a fulsome review of the plan, given our current staff situation. But Karen will just make sure we're on the same page as we should be. And then we'll hear initially from the applicant. The applicant will have up to 10 minutes to present their case, including any witnesses or offers of evidence. If there are any opponents present, we will recognize those individuals for up to 3 minutes to present their case in opposition to the request, including if they choose any witnesses or offers of evidence. We'll do that in alphabetical order if there are multiple opponents present. Presentation then by supporters, again, 3 minutes, the same sort of process if anyone wants to speak in support. We'll then give the applicant an opportunity to respond for up to 5 minutes to any comments made on the application. After that, we will then have an opportunity for members of the commission to question both the applicant and staff members to the extent that there's useful information the staff may have for us. Then we will move into deliberations. We will keep our questions separate from our deliberations. And once we get to this stage of deliberations, it will just be the members of the commission with the opportunity to speak. So if everyone's clear on that, Karen, you wanted to give us some context?
Sure. I'll just give you a quick little historical perspective here. When this project first came through for ARB, BZAP, and then eventually approved at ARB, it consistently showed a circular drive. When the current, I don't know if they're owners yet or in contract, replaced the original, they decided that they just wanted one driveway to go to the back of the property, to the garage, which I think, and my board ARB would say is a great improvement. The more green space, the better. So that's what I would point out. I don't have the expertise to talk anything about the trees and the species, what is selected, although it sure seems to be a very robust plan. I think that the applicants did have Elena Andrews do a review for them, not for the city. So, but we can all feel some comfort in that, we're familiar with her knowledge base. So, that's really all I would have to say. I hope I didn't confuse you by downloading one as version 1 and version 2. That I can't think of any way simpler to do it, but version 1 had the circular drive, and version 2, I've been working with Lori, who you'll be introduced to today, has been incredibly responsive. I did go through the document checklist for all of you, and I think everything is there.
So just so everyone on the commission has the right thing before them, if you've printed things out, it's packet 2, not packet 1. So, and I think we'll have it on the screen. Right?
Yeah. I do like to keep both of them on the website so that you can compare and know the history. So it is version 2.
Okay. I think we're ready to hear from the applicant. We're not allowed to swear, people. I asked.
Hi, everybody.
I just want to check and see, can everybody see, or do we need to pull down the shades on the south side of City Hall? John and Brandon, can you see? And Yoas, can you see? Okay, thank you.
Okay, folks. So I'll start with a little I don't know how much you know about this property. Certainly.
John, could you introduce yourself?
John B. Hall Sampson Deeds. I'm the architect of the house and really started the whole original site planning. And Lori Watkins is the landscape designer from Oakland Nursery. And she did the actual landscape plan and plant selection. So a little bit of background. So I think it's interesting, the history of this property, just so everybody knows, these 2 original lots, it's actually 2 in a slice, original lots, were part of the Baton House, which then became the Elman House, the large house to the north. So this was part of that large estate. In the 1950s, it's interesting actually that that house belonged to Columbus Academy for a while. So somehow through the years that changed hands. It's kind of an overwhelming house that Don Wojciechowski now owns. Thank God he has it. So obviously there was some consideration about how much maintenance and how much property they had. And Charles Lazarus came along and bought the two lots. They separated those two lots from the main property. And so Charles and Franny Lazarus built their house in 1953. And as you probably know, after Franny died, there was a divorce. That house went to Charles's second wife, who lived the rest of her life in that house. But clearly, when we saw the property and what we know from the family, the maintenance of the property basically stopped at the point of that divorce. And that's what we see as far as the house was concerned, and that's what we see as how the property and the landscaping was concerned. So pretty much a total renewal of this property sort of became the only real option. So we're trying to maintain the trees that the arborist says are viable. So we have actually a really nice, today it was so beautiful, ginkgo tree, the back of the property that from what I can tell was there already in 1953. And then a sugar maple towards the street, which again was on the landscape plan from 1953 as an existing tree. So those two trees are important trees that the arborist says are still in good shape and will remain. And of course, we have three beautiful street trees there too, which obviously will remain. Most of the other landscape on the property is either basically, volunteer growth. I mean, there's a lot, of course, invasive honeysuckle, weeds, the Callery pears that were in back. Of course, Callery pears are illegal now, but they had never been maintained and outlived their life. So we have just basic trees that are remaining on the site. And then we have Lori's extensive landscape plan, which luckily we can just basically maintain the existing driveway and basically clean up the site. And it's, as you can see, it's not a minimal landscape plan. It's a pretty lush landscape plan. And I guess the other thing I just want to mention is because we're taking out the tennis court, we are, even with a larger house, we're increasing the green, decreasing the hard surface cover and increasing the amount of greenscape we have on this lot. So it seems to me, it's like I said to Susan before the meeting, it's the dream project for the tree commission to really renew a property in this lush way and bring this property back to life. So Lori, you might want to talk a little bit about the actual landscaping.
Hello, again, I'm Lori Francisco Botkins with Oakland Nursery. And excited about this project. So as you can see, the property is very interesting. It has a number of existing large trees, but also a lot of volunteer trees and extensive undergrowth. We do intend to keep, as John mentioned, the silver maple in the front. And there is also a honey locust in the back we call it the secret garden in that back, the green one there. And then the ginkgo tree up in the back corner there. I went through with an arborist and reviewed all of the trees. And I think we've included an extensive report that he submitted on the state of the trees and what we can keep. There are a number of the larger trees that show fungal growth and some, there you can see them, some concerning aspects of them and their longevity. So with the The homeowner is very excited to increase the trees on the lot, but he wants to do it in a safe way. So any trees that we felt and the arborists felt were, potentially hazards in the future, we're definitely going to ask your permission to remove. And then we'll replace them with, the opportunity to put something new and exciting in. In the landscape plan itself, we are paying homage to the 3 oaks that are in the center of the property, with a grouping of 3 new red oaks on the south side of the property. You can see them up on the upper right, yeah, those 3 right there. So we wanted to, just a little nod to what was there before. Planting wise, the homeowners are a lovely young family, very young family, and they're excited to have green space to play. And they want to be able to see the street and enjoy the neighbors and people walking up and down the street. So the removal of the hemlock growth and all of the things along the street, which right now you could drive right by this property and not see it because of all the hemlocks and things that are growing. So they really want to open it up and make it much more friendly and a better environment for their kids growing up. So I have a mix of a lot of flowering trees, a lot of boxwoods, hydrangeas, perennials. It should be very lush and very pretty. And then in the backyard, we're looking at what we call the secret garden, which is there now. It's a really neat feature on the left side there on the, you can see there's an existing brick storage areas and a brick wall that goes all the way back. That's where the pears were. I'm sure in its heyday, it was quite lovely. There was a grouping of 10 pears that ran down. They were in bad shape and not able to be saved. But the homeowner told me he really likes the idea of keeping that as a special space, especially for the history of the lot. So we're reworking it and doing a lot of hydrangeas and boxwoods and things like that with a line of oaks, the thin oaks, the skinny ones that run along the back, and with a small gravel patio, I believe. I'm exploring still, but right now I show it as a gravel patio with some birch, multi-stem white spire birch in the middle, so that when you look out from the house, it's lined up now with the back of the house. And then in the north part, there's an existing fountain right now that's on that wall, so we'd like to try and rework that fountain and make that space a little private space. And there are some existing, I don't know what kind of tile they are right now. It looks like they came when they built the secret garden, and the homeowner's excited to try and rework those into the plan so that we can save that aspect of the existing garden and kind of use those either in the fountain area or somewhere in that secret garden. Do you have any
Anything
questions?
else? We will ask you questions after we've heard
Okay, sure.
from any.
Oh, I should mention, so the neighbor to the south has an existing wall that borders their property. That area is covered in wisteria and honeysuckle, so we'll clean it out and do a nice mixed planting of, and that's actually on the top of that view. Yeah, it's right in there. So we'll use a mix of evergreens, some flowering shrubs, and just so they'll get lots of color and privacy. I'm sure the neighbor would also like that as well. And then on the north side, which is down at the bottom, we're going to do, I'm proposing a row of hornbeam with underplantings of hydrangea along that property there with some evergreens to shield the view from, the neighbors to the north, so they don't have to look at the garage coming through this way. And I'm sure you can all look at all the other plants, but that's a brief overview of what we're thinking of doing.
Thank you. John, did you want to say something more?
One thing, I forgot to mention the siting of the house. So one of the issues that we had with the previous house that was here was it was very short. Here you have two large houses on that side of Columbia that are, pretty much max height, 40 feet for, and you had this little house, little short house in the middle off center. And right away, we recognized there was a scale problem. So that if we're going to do a new house, we really need to, have, tall shoulders to kind of, actually, I think it accentuates, certainly the neighbors thinks it would accentuate their property and the sense of scale for the entire street. So this house is 40 feet tall, max height for Bexley, and it's quite long and fills the lot. Now, although it's certainly a more casual style than the other two houses, but yet it has a scale feature and of course is designed to have a sense of the history of Bexley in the design.
Thank you. Do we have anyone that wants to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing no one, is there anyone that wants to speak in support of the application? Then, and go ahead. And please introduce yourself and if you could give your address.
John Warchansky, 260 North Columbia, next door on the north side. Thank you for hearing me today. I'm not necessarily in opposition or in support. I'm here just as a neighbor adjoining the property who has not seen this plan before. My main concern is the fencing and whatever coverage will be between our two properties. It's extensively covered now, as you can see from the photographs and the drawings, with the hemlock that is not in a great state at this point. So I certainly am in support of what the applicant has said to you today about their removal, as well as the large tree that's there that has decay. That is true. I've had my own landscape people look at them, several landscape people look as well. There's an existing fence made of wood. There is also a difference in topography in these two sites. When Mrs. Lazarus lived there and before it was excavated, if you were to look at my house from their side, you're significantly higher than when I look across the fence at their property. Now that they've excavated, I think we may be on the same level. But when they start to construct again, I would guess that they're again on a higher level. So they're seeing very clearly over the fence, can easily climb over that. And I'm a little bit concerned about that in terms of view. And since I have a pool and they have small children, I want to make sure that that is clearly thought about and dealt with here, as well as the quality of that fence. There is no quality, it's falling down. I mean, the trees are in decay, the fence is a lot worse than that. So I don't know, being new to Bexley, I'm not sure who is in charge of that. If this commission or others have a say in that, or have all the say in that. And I would like to hear from you all about that.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to respond to the comments?
I mentioned new fence, but we don't have a design.
Yeah, no, I think, listen, look at this plan. This homeowner is trying to make this, this is a big project. So clearly we need to do some fencing. I just think that our client has not they haven't thought through exactly what that fence replacement is. It's fairly much of a standard fence now, wouldn't you say? So my suggestion to the client and to John is, I think, since I don't think anyone knows whose fence that actually is, the existing is, that they split the cost of whatever they decide mutually on a fence through that area. The rest of the property has, most of the rest of the property has either brick wall or stone wall. So, and there's a little wood fence where the stone wall, the brick wall fell down and Mrs. Lazarus would not allow them to rebuild it. So there's a little piece of wood fence there. And so there has to be some agreement, but to me, that's an agreement between two homeowners that they need to decide mutually what they want to do with that fence. Of course, it has to meet Bexley standards. And so frankly, most of it is covered with landscaping. So anyway, that's our comment.
Great, thank you. I think now is the time when we turn to questions. Well, we just,
Should I turn on the lights?
yeah. Celeste, you want to start with you, and maybe we need a mic.
I gave her a mic.
Oh, okay.
Just make sure you have it on, Celeste.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about the landscaping, of course, and not to Jim, but so that would be to you, Lori. One is,
Maybe you could come to the podium so that
oh.
we can pick up your answers on the recording.
do you know how many trees are being lost from this? And I'm sort of softly including the silver maple.
So I don't have my full thing in front of me. So on the site list right there, the number of trees, I don't know if you can see on there. Can you see in there? I used the caliper of trees on the bottom there, how many we're removing. The silver maple in the front stays, it's the red maple on the north side, R, the tree R. So we're keeping the silver maple near the street. So we have a total caliber of trees existing as 1,065 total inches of tree. We're taking out 959 inches of tree. And we're actually removing 69 trees and proposed planting 71 new trees.
And some of those are dwarf trees,
Some of them are, or I'd say ornamentals, like.
ornamental, and not necessarily canopy deciduous trees.
We have the 3 red oaks towards the front are canopy trees. The hornbeams coming up the front drive and flanking the front door. They're not maple trees, but they're large trees. And the oaks in the back will get tall, but they're skinny and sturdy,
Mhm.
not big wide.
Okay, and our tree commission, the city isn't necessarily, we don't plant silver maples anymore, so I didn't know if that was something that our group would be interested in asking you to take out the silver maple. So you have a whole fresh new beginning with the other trees, because silver maples don't last that long and can be quickly, is at the age of this property when it was last attended to, it could be going downhill fast.
It's a glorious tree.
It's a glorious tree?
It's a glorious.
Okay, I didn't notice that yesterday.
Can't because all those hemlocks hide it, but it's a glorious big tree. It's in good shape. It was there already in 1953, so it's got to be at least 80 years old. I mean, maybe it will eventually come down.
Okay,
It seems like.
well, I'm glad that you,
You put a dagger in my heart.
and there you stood up right away. Yes, oh, I appreciate that, because most of them, 90% of them can't speak to that.
Is it really a silver maple or is it a sugar maple?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know.
It's a sugar
I
maple.
think it's
Sorry.
a sugar maple.
That's my fault. I
think
keep
it's-
flipping.
think it's a sugar
It is.
maple.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
It is a sugar. Sorry
So,
about that.
Oh, that's all right.
And the arborist did inspect it and he feels it is.
Good. That's excellent, because then you have your canopy. And then the other part, I don't want to, other people will have more questions, so I'm not going to take all my questions that I have written down. But do I understand that Oakland understands our standards for replacement? And after a year, if things aren't doing well or they're dying, that they are replaced within a certain time limit? I've had that experience with Oakland, and I haven't been happy with it.
Sorry about that. Yes, so, well, Oakland has the industry standard of a year's warranty on any plants that are replaced. And you are due some plants, but yes,
Mhm.
so that is the standard, industry standard, so after a year. I will often, if we go back, if the homeowner calls me and says, Laura, you put these trees in, but this one looks a little funny, or this one seems to have an issue. Sometimes plants go into shock when they're initially planted, and they'll have like some stunting, or they'll come out next year and some of the leaves are smaller than we would expect. I will usually make a note and I'll say, well, let's give it another season just to see. And if it does look like it's struggling, especially on a large project like this. This is not a small installation. My boss, Oakland Nursery, is usually agreeable to me replacing something that's not thriving because, we want it to look good too.
Okay, thank you very much. I pass questions on to others.
I have a question. When you said you're putting all the horn beams along the drive, is there a lot of large canopy trees there that will create a lot of shade on the horn beams?
No, so the biggest tree is that red maple that we're proposing the removal, the large one. Right now, it's just a line of thin hemlock trees that run up that side. On the other side, there's like an access drive on the north property, and there's plantings on the other side. But we should have room, and the horn beams would be the more narrow European version, and then underplanted with some hydrangeas underneath them.
And then when you talked about the fence, I mean, it's obviously been cited where the property line is, so whoever's fences belongs to, it's their responsibility to do something with it.
Mhm. I did speak with the homeowner, the newest homeowner, Mr. Connor, about the fence, and he is in agreement that it needs to be replaced. And he wants it to reflect the property itself. And since there's brick along that back edge, we talked about, and I don't want to speak to him before he has a chance to, he's got a lot of decisions to make. But, we talked about maybe brick columns with wood in between to tie into the brick wall that's going there. So he definitely wants it to look purposeful and intentional in that space.
Mhm.
And he definitely knows that it needs to be replaced, not only just for the privacy for the homeowner with the pool, but also he has small children, so he wants it to be safe as well.
Would that be something that's reviewed by AARB?
Not necessarily ARB, so Mr. Klingler will review it.
Okay.
If it needs zoning, it'll go to BZAP, and pending BZAP's opinion, it will either be reviewed for design by me, or if it's a really elaborate, something different, I can't imagine that it wouldn't just be reviewed by me, but occasionally they'll throw something back to ARB. But there's definitely a process.
Okay. And is there also irrigation
There would be irrigation.
for the whole site?
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sheila?
I was going to ask about the wall, and so that's been clarified. Thank you.
Audra? No questions. Mary?
Um, Quite a plan, very, very nice. Just a couple comments. The barberry can be invasive. If there's any opportunity to reconsider on that one, that would make me really happy.
Okay.
Especially the pygmy, from what I've read, it can convert back to the straight species and it can then become invasive. And we've got a lot of wooded property in the area. The other thing is, you're probably going to have a major problem with deer over there. So you might want to consider protecting all these young plantings.
Mhm.
Mary, right now is the time for questions of them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You sort of launched into,
Once again, sorry.
that's what I'm here for, Mary.
I apologize. Can I ask how you plan to plant these? Will you remove wire baskets?
Excellent question.
Yes, I know that is a topic of discussion between Oakland and past works. So any specific planting methods that you want to employ, I'm sure my employer will agree to.
Well, the biggest concern is, the burlapped and balled and a lot of the burlap apparently from what we've been told is not degradable like it used to be. It's actually made of plastic.
There are some growers, though we try in our growing, but we do bring in some plant material. They will use that synthetic twine, so we certainly wouldn't want to keep that on. So I know Oakland likes to keep the balls intact during planting while they grow. So usually we will keep the burlap up and the twine on so that as the tree moves, the ball stays in place. But I know that the baskets have been an issue, so, and I spoke with the owner before I came here and told him that we were gonna meet. And so he understands that.
Great.
Yeah.
Actually, the ODN, or no, USDA has a great tree manual about planting, which, I mean, I realize you guys are professionals, but I have seen situations. So, and the other thing is, do you plant the volcano mulch?
No, we do not do volcano mulch. We try to keep everything at the level. I feel like people do that when they plant the trees too tall and then they have to cover it up, and then over the years they just keep cover, but we want to keep that flange at the
Thank you.
grade level.
Okay.
And keep the tree healthy.
All for my comments and questions.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, so I, for one, am very excited that it's not a circular drive because it certainly gives you more to plant and it doesn't destroy that fabulous brick curb. And so I do want to talk about the brick curb and ask if you know that there are protections of that brick curb that need to be installed in the plant during this time.
Yes, so I don't know. Can you just speak to it?
I mean, you know, the curb, that curb cut, we're not changing the curb cut.
Correct, correct.
So it's, because we don't need to, and that is fairly new. The one thing that was done to that property at some point was a new apron. So
Right.
it seems to me that we don't need to touch that curb. Why do you think we would affect it?
Well, is
Well,
the
be-
construction access through the existing driveway?
Yeah, well, let me ask you.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because-
we, you know,
So
when we
here's
get to
why I
some-
think you need to protect it, because I walked the sidewalk today and the trucks that have already come on site are taking a tight corner in. And so they're driving over the right of way and driving up around on the brick curb. So there are protections. I think Grant, Karen can send you the protections that you need to take to make sure that the brick curb's not destroyed, or if it is destroyed or removed, I think they've done that, Grant, haven't they? People take out the bricks, hold them, and then put it back in.
Yeah, and you replay, yeah.
And then
This should be all part of the permit that they already have. It should be all. in
That-
there.
you might just want to check that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, and then I did want, as I was walking today, I did want to ask Grant if he feels there will be additional trees planted in the right of way in front of John's home on Columbia, because that might, I don't think that would affect the trees that you're planting, but I thought that it would be a question that maybe everybody would want to know upstream rather than downstream.
I can look into it. At this point, I don't know.
Have any, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we can get back to you on.
The three trees that are, the three trees there look pretty good. I mean,
Mhm.
they're not ancient, but they're already pretty good size. I think there's a sweet gum and two
One sweet gum and two maple.
Right.
Yeah.
maples, so they look pretty good in. It's already has them protected.
Right, right. We noticed that when we walked. So those are my questions. So Mr. Wilson, I'll call on you for questions.
I have a few questions. Can we go, Aaron, back to the initial drawing of, Grant, can we go back to the drawing of the? So, I understand that demolition has begun. Is that right?
Completed.
Okay, so what plantings have been taken out already?
Well, okay, that plan there is not, well, I guess it is. Is that supposed to be the existing? Okay,
That's what I understood to be. That might be a more useful drawing there. At least I understand colors better than shapes.
yeah, yeah, so that's what's,
The green is still there and then the red was what's proposed to be removed.
except then the large tree to the north of the driveway, is still there. It's the one we've been discussing. North is to that one. You just went past. R, and then the three oaks that are right in the middle of the footprint of the house.
They're still there.
They're still.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I guess my question is what of the shrubbery that screens the adjacent lots has been taken out? Any of it?
I mean, there's a wall, continuous wall, so we didn't jump over the wall to take anything out. Got a continuous wall on two sides, fence on one side, and then John Wojciechowski's had, we have in the front, we have hemlocks, and then John has Service Drive on his property there adjacent to that. So pretty much we can't really touch the neighbors.
Yeah, and I guess,
The hemlocks are still there. We didn't take those out. And we left the hemlocks in front too for now. I mean, we were thinking leave the hemlocks in front. Why does everybody have to look at the construction that's walking by? Leave the hemlocks in for a while while the construction starts, and then eventually, take those out.
yeah, and I'm just trying to understand, I haven't walked the site, so I don't have a visual for it. Just to give you context, not to make a speech, part of the reason for the ordinance that we're working under is to protect the screenings in the adjacent lots. And what I'm trying to understand, at least my point of view, is that should be protected until it's replaced, not removed unless absolutely necessary during the construction. And that's what I'm trying to understand, is whether any of the screening between this house and the two adjacent lots has already been removed, because that may deal with some conditions that I would consider making. So that's the background to my question. And so when I look at the drawing, I see screening on the south side and the north side, and I realize there may be walls, but I'm trying to understand what's been taken down.
Just the invasive stuff on the side, and I talked to Ron Hoffman, who lives on the right, and he wanted it removed. He hated those things, so
Yeah.
we took it out, and then the only way to see that, the pine tree was to actually take it out. The pine tree on the south side there, that's still there, by the way. We couldn't even approach it, it was covered with, hysteria and all kinds of stuff that was invasive, so we had to take it out just to get to look at that tree. And then the arborist can see it and say, no, it wasn't in good shape either. But everything was coordinated with Ron Hoffman, and he wanted it out, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the flip side of that, of your thoughts on that is this junk has been growing, this invasive plants have been growing there for 25 years, and the Kaufmans could not do anything about it all those years. And so now finally to get it all cleaned out is a relief to them, because you know how that invasive stuff goes, it starts to affect their property too.
And I understand that, and the commission can discuss how it understands the ordinance. The ordinance says nothing's removed until we approve a landscaping plan, and that's what as it's currently written, and as we look forward as to what we want in an ordinance, I'm trying to understand that. I understand this neighbor's not offended, but we also have an ordinance that says nothing gets removed. I understand definite demolition the permit was granted, and that's done, but I don't think a demolition permit supersedes the ordinance that says none of the shrubbery can be removed until we act. That's where I am.
The only comment I have to make, and I understand the intention of that ordinance, but if I think about where I live, my next door neighbor came in 2 days after they bought the property. They came in with chainsaws. They sawed everything down on the entire property. And then when they came to the architectural review and landscape review, there was nothing to review. So this is, quite unfair, because this timing thing is basically unenforceable.
I'm not debating that. I'm just trying to understand what's been
The timeline.
removed, because it may impact some conditions that we put on approval. So that's not looking to debate that. I just want to be clear. I think that this was said in the opening statements, but you are representing that all of the trees not being removed are healthy. Is that correct?
According to our arborist, yes, those have been evaluated.
Okay. I think that's the questions that I have.
All right, so there's no more conversation with our applicants.
But it's for our arborist.
Okay,
Grant, have you evaluated the trees on the property?
I have not stepped foot on the property. Only the trees I've looked at are the city trees out front.
So you don't know about the oak trees that are listed there that need to be taken out.
Well, I mean, they're in the middle of the building footprint. I don't think you could safely
Unless, well, yeah.
build a building on it and keep the health of the trees.
So to Oakland's credit, they did have an arborist from Russell Tree Service come in, and that's part of the report. So I think, you know, Lori showed us the fungus at the roots of those, which is disappointing because the canopy is fabulous, having seen that. But
But just a comment too, I mean, just so you know, if we had saved the house that was there, those trees would have had to come out
right,
because the remedies to save the house would have destroyed the trees. So this tree, you know, but even if they were healthy, they would have had to come out.
I know. The challenge always with trees is they may be unhealthy, but they may still look beautiful. So you still have this bittersweet kind of situation in your hand.
No.
Yeah.
It's not, it's too bad those trees were planted right in the middle of where you would normally put a house.
Yeah. I have a feeling they were there
No, they were planted in 53.
in 53.
They're
They did well. Okay, Mr. Wilson.
Discussion amongst members. Well,
What is a raspberry pear? I looked that up.
Oh, it's a raspberry spear.
Oh, spear.
Yeah, it's a raspberry spear crab apple. So they're a narrow crab apple with beautiful raspberry colored blooms and a fruit set. And they're located on the north side, outside of that arched window. There's a grouping of 3 of them.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I didn't see the
Well,
fine print.
It's probably my labeling, you know.
It's a raspberry pear, no.
okay. I think we're ready for discussion amongst members of the commission. We're going to go in different order this time. Mary, would you like to make any comments?
No, I have nothing to say.
Okay, don't get your feelings hurt.
I'm
You-
not, believe me.
Yeah.
If I had feelings, yeah.
Yeah.
So can we put in our approval whether or not, you know, volcano mulching and removing cages? I mean, are we allowed to say?
Believe that we can put conditions on the manner in which replacements are planted, yes. I think we've done that in the past.
Okay,
We've
that's what I-
certainly suggested in the past that any plantings conform to, I think, the Ohio Nursery Association planting standards.
Okay.
Anyone have comments?
No comments.
You, Sheila? No, I do not.
All set. Thank you.
Susan?
No, I'd just like to, you know, go back and note the brick protection and, you know, reinforce the fact that the access is the existing drive. And they, you know, interested in grants, insights and plans on trees, additional trees on Columbia. So that's it. I don't have any more comments.
Do we need to mention anything about the right-of-way trees and being protected?
They're already protected.
They're
They're already
okay.
protected.
Is there a written tree protection plan?
Not you mean with the application process, right?
Yeah, because it's all in the application.
So it's the same, it's the same for all applications.
Correct.
Right. So it'll be the same with the one we talk about on Main Street today. Okay. All right. So Mr. Wilson, do you have anything you'd like to discuss?
Well, as my questions probably suggested, I do have concern that our statute reads one way and we apply it in a different way. I understand that the city's view is that it can grant a demolition permit before we've approved the landscape plan, and I accept that that's the city's view. I don't think, frankly, that it was appropriate to remove anything other than what was necessitated by the demolition permit prior to meeting with us. You know, I think we can consider whether the city or this commission wants to suggest changes to the ordinance. I'm not suggesting that the screening here was optimal or something that we loved, but I also my own preference, frankly, if someone were building something next to me, would be to retain the screening until something new was planted. And so I do have concerns about that. I also would say that, if this homeowner is the one removing the fence, then I don't think it's the obligation of, the neighbor to share in the cost of a replacement fence. And so I will, if I'm recognized to make a motion, suggest that, if the fence isn't replaced, that adequate screening, be put in place that's comparable to what a fence would do. We don't seem to have certainty, and fences aren't our priority. I'm sure that the design of the fence will be carefully reviewed by the city, but I think where we stand is there's no assurance that a fence will be put in, and so I think we need to condition this on, screening if the homeowner decides not to put a fence in.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Given that a swimming pool is considered an attractive nuisance, wouldn't it be the owner of the pool who would have installed the fence?
Well, I'm repeatedly told that I'm not an expert on our city's laws, but I believe that the owner of the swimming pool, it has an obligation to put, I believe, a 4-foot fence minimum around the swimming
The
pool.
pool,
Yeah.
the pool. So, okay. Well, I would, I think that, and we could all talk about it together, but I do feel that the conversation about the demolition permit and the removal of the screening is a city and a commission discussion that the, property owner probably, was not, was not part of that discussion. So
That may well be.
that may well be. So I would suggest that the tree commission and the city work through the nuances and the timeline for those. And it can't be all that hard. It can't be all that hard. So are there any other questions, discussion, issues? Celeste?
Just want to clarify my concern about the 1-year warranty, that Oakland does step up to this and finds himself responsible to be on duty and be accurate with time and replacement within a year. Thank you.
I do think that's the property owners.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think in the past, we've put an obligation on the property owner to replace plantings regardless of whether it was still within the warranty period or not. And,
Right.
so we can include that if we choose to in the conditions.
okay. Okay, so if no other discussion or questions, I will take a motion. All right, Mr. Wilson.
I move that we approve the plan as presented with the following additional conditions. First of all, that all plantings of trees and shrubbery be in conformance with Ohio Nursery Association standards. And secondly, that if the homeowner chooses not to replace the fence, that they, assuming we have a landscape consultant by then, that they present an alternative form of screening to our landscape consultant. And then finally, that the replacement plantings on the peripheries of the property occur as soon as practical within the construction process. That the plantings on the periphery of the property occur as soon as practical within the construction process.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, so the discussion had, or the motion had 3 elements to it. All right, and there's no discussion about that. So motion is made and seconded that we approve the plan as presented and that all the plantings are installed according to Ohio Nursery Association standards, that if a fence is not replaced, that the homeowner install plant material that would screen his property from the property to the north, and that the periphery plantings are installed as soon as possible. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose, same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay.
Who had the second? Who seconded that? Who was that?
Linda did. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it. What?
Susan,
Oh, Matt.
if I could just have an insight into the application. When I reviewed the application for the demolition permit, our code doesn't say anything, I'm sorry, our demolition part of the code to approve a demolition permit doesn't read what it reads in 1026.16 about removing plants before. So we're working on code updates to make sure both are reflected and then also some tweaks. So, Jim and I have spoken about that. I certainly would have adhered to that code if it was in my demolition code, but I was reading the demolition code as like a checklist and it wasn't in there. So an oversight on my part, a learning lesson for me. So.
No suggestion of an oversight, just an area where we can improve our city's code and our process so that we get the goals that we all want.
And I'm gonna put the language from 1026 on the demolition permit. So when it's issued in the future, when they get that certificate of demolition permit, they'll know.
So without trying to, go to the head of the class here, I don't think we can say enough good things about the fine details that Matt's trying to work through to make sure that A and Z line up at M and N O P. So thank you, Matt, for being willing to integrate code, ordinance, behavior into one. Good luck with that. Thank you, John. and thanks all
Before our
for coming.
applicants leave,
All right.
I just want to say how much it means that you are investing as much as you are in the city. Thank you very much for this project. It's going to turn out great. Thank
And
you.
I want to thank John, who's a new resident, for coming and being part of the process today and knowing that you can always return to us if you wish. Yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? Okay, so Karen, while you were here, you weren't here last time because we had no applications. I thought you might want to update the commission on some outcomes from your historical preservation study group.
We have not met since you guys met.
Well,
again,
holy
but-
moly.
But I am working on ways that we can start moving along the process for a local designation process.
you mentioned.
Because that is, as I think we spoke about before, that's the only thing that really holds some meat to be able to keep things big and small.
So I went to Karen's slate presentation.
Oh, yeah, that I can tell you about.
Okay.
I won't belabor it, but for those of you who didn't make it, you missed a good one. 'Cause it
You
was
did
really
miss a good
fun.
one. It was great.
We actually didn't have a lot of people, which I didn't expect at a 4 o'clock meeting, but we met around the conference table and were able to really like touch and feel all the slate and understand the differences from one natural slate to the next, good, bad, and different. And we got some demonstrations on how they actually nail them in, and we're gonna move ahead with some programs. Not sure the format that they'll take yet, to try to inspire people to keep their slate, incentivize them. Also, with the permission and suggestion of the mayor, I'm already working on I'm already working on this with Trevor Fisher, who owns Precision Slate and Tire. We're going to do a street by street survey of the slate and what kind of slate is on that particular house. It'll take a little while, but we're going to kind of get in a car together with the computer and put it on the owner sheets that are on our viewpoint. There's information about the house, so we can flag it from the beginning.
And a GIS layer,
Yes.
which we could add into tree thingy do.
Yeah.
Tree plotter.
But yes, thank you for reminding me, because I thought it was a great session.
Yeah, it was fun. So,
Great.
slate can last 250 to 400 years. Who wouldn't love that, right?
Yeah.
They also do chimney caps in case the squirrels have gotten the better of
Oh,
chimney
nice.
caps.
Bottom line is, if people maintain their slate, it'll last forever.
Okay.
I'd just like to comment that I think Mr. Wilson has one of the best looking slates in the city. It's extraordinary.
They're welcome to come to my.
Whoa.
Actually, they,
I was wondering where you're going there.
Yeah.
that would confuse anyone, but they're coming to look at my chimney caps so they can count my slate while they're there.
Good.
Okay, so we have no residents here, or did you have a comment? I'm so sorry. I was going to say we didn't have any residents' comments. Okay.
This dog. My God. That's a dog.
Well,
And can introduce yourself.
okay, yeah, Pippin, sit. Pippin, sit.
She is.
Pippin. 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 Pippin, sit.
Perfect.
Wait. This on, do I,
Yeah, that's just perfect.
sorry, it was already on. Okay. I'm Michael Meckler and I live at 919 South Roosevelt and this is Pippin.
Hello, Pippin.
Yes, Pippin is a basset hound. He is a big fan of city trees. He has fertilized many of them on his own, of his own initiative. But I just wanted to, I didn't know whether this was the right place to mention it. But so a couple of months ago, I got this app on my phone and it's from Cornell University. It's from the ornithology lab, and it's called Merlin. And
Yeah.
so some of you are aware of this. Well, what it does, for those who don't know about this app, is that you can point your phone and it will record the birds and it will identify the birds. So I don't know whether the city is doing this or has thought about it or has talked about it, but if the city has recording microphones or things that are doing recording in any parts of the city, that one could have it timed so that those recordings were then would go through Merlin and have the birds identified. And one could set this up in a way where you would do it, say, a certain number of minutes after, excuse me, Pat, I'm talking. A couple of minutes, after sunrise and before sunset when the birds are singing the most. And by having that data, that would actually give you some information about biodiversity in our birds. And that would also reflect upon the quality of our tree cover and our trees. So I don't know whether anybody has thought about that, but I just thought I would bring that up as an interesting project for people to think about in the city, because it would actually be fairly easy to set something up like this because it's all automated. And then if you did this for a year, you'd have some pretty good data about the different types of birds that are here in Bexley and where they are. And that would be also an interesting way to think about our tree cover and how healthy our tree cover is. So that was all that I wanted to bring up.
Well, you should also mention that on your property, you have a Bexley landmark tree. Is that not true?
Yes, that is. I have a Norway spruce that is a Bexley landmark tree on my property. So
We still need a tag on it, Sheila.
Well, I know I put a yellow ribbon around it.
yes, well, so I didn't know. I thought my neighbors had put the yellow ribbon and because I didn't realize what that was for. And so I left it up thinking, oh, they had put it up. And I talked to them and they said, oh, no, we didn't put it up. We thought you put it up. And then I got the information that the city put it up. And so, yes.
Well, we thank you for that great tree.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I think it's kind of exciting to think about, doing a survey of our birds or some cataloging. And we have bird enthusiasts in this community. We do. And within City Hall?
Yeah, Natalie Votter is a big birder.
Okay, and so is Jamie Taylor. And I don't know who's in his group, but I know they are kind of a groupie experience. So I think it would be fun to, maybe put out a little email and have a study group meet and see if they are interested in doing something like that.
I think we have our chair in the study group, so.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
When you propose a new idea, you're in charge of
Uh-oh.
it, just so you know. That works.
Could also be a great project for a class at the high school or CSG
Yeah.
to do.
Well, thank you for coming. We appreciate your good thoughts, for hosting a city tree, bringing Pippin with you. And you gave me your card the last time we met, but I have misplaced it. So if you could,
I have another card on me.
okay, that'd be just great.
Pippin, hold on.
And it's so much fun to have residents come with such a happy idea.
And their dogs.
And their
well
dogs, that's
behaved.
right.
He's sort of behaving.
Yeah.
I am trying to, I've brought him, as the mayor knows, I've brought him to several city council meetings, and.
Our mascot.
Well, I want him, he's a pandemic pup. So, I mean, now he's 4.5 years old. Yeah, he's a pandemic pup, and as such, didn't get the socialization. And so, he is a therapy dog. I take him over to, the Creekside twice a month. And he does something, man, pick up, different things.
Well, Mike, thank you for coming today. So appreciate it. And we'll start to work on this. Okay, thank you. So on announcements and small victories, Mary was going to do a quick overview of the Bexley Community Gardens and Bexley Bloomers end of year.
Yes. Well, as far as the gardens go, we had a wonderful season considering the bad weather. We donated 1,225 pounds of produce this year, which put us over 10,755 pounds of donated produce since we started keeping track in 2011. So that's very exciting. We logged over 750 volunteer hours at the gardens this year as well. And we started a fund at the Community Foundation, and that's exciting that we are at $14,875 in contributions so far. So, and as far as the Bloomers go, another successful year there too. We've had about 860 hours of volunteer time this year. Our luncheon is on December the 16th, in case you were invited and haven't responded. And we're going to have a wrap-up meeting on the 12th with Mike and Ron. And on Monday, the pumpkins go, and on Wednesday, Julie comes and does the urns for the holidays. So, oh, and then I've got one other thing. Do you have those pictures, Grant? Not that one. There. Okay, so that is some Bexley High School kids, and if you scroll down, there should be two others right there, and that is Bill and Charlie Waterman. They were at Jeffrey last Sunday, and they organized this group effort with the science club over at the high school. They spent about 24 hours combined removing invasive honeysuckle. Charlie's doing this as a science project, and he identified a few areas in the woods that he's going to study for forest restoration. And it's part of the Global Scholars Program, and it's actually a 2 to 3 year study project. So it was kind of exciting to see all those kids over there pulling out all that honeysuckle. So
I think we should count them as bloomer hours.
I did.
Okay, so
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. It sounds like a great year. And I was just going to give everybody a Trees for Bexley update since Ellen couldn't be here. To date, we've raised $26,063 for Grant's Fall Project for 2025, which we feel might be rehab of Fair Avenue. And that compared that to $27,621, a little more last year than this year at this time, but we have 10 more donors this year than last year. So overall, good news. And then can you go back to those? I was going to show what I saw on the streets of New York last week. Just thought it's a sign. It's kind of a, let's see what else you got there. We'll hang on. There, that one, just go back up there. Okay, so we're walking down the street and they're telling us, help us plant 1,000 new street trees. So a city council person is asking his district to help him raise money for 1,000 trees to plant the in-between spots. So I am disappointed that Troy is not here because I would put up signs for him if he wanted to raise money for 1,000 new street trees. But I thought it was kind of a clever way. They put it on the street where they're planting, going to plant the trees. So anything else? Roster, Grant, could you, Natalie printed out those rosters right to the right of you. Could you guys take one and pass it down that way and we'll see. All three of them? Okay, good. We just need to check and see if the information is updated and correct. So I'll pass it down and then once it is, then we'll send it out to everybody. Okay, so Grant, besides working the computer, are you able to do your report now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Did you want to do yours first, Ben, or?
Yeah, what's your situation like, you guys?
No, I'm good. You go ahead.
All right. Well, the fall tree planting is, happening right now. We have about 70 trees left to plant. But for all in all, it's going very well. We have had some issues with some residents not wanting a tree in their yard. Something that we can discuss, as tree commission members. There are trees that are behind the sidewalk, not between the curb and sidewalk. So my personal opinion is, yeah, it's the two addresses currently are on Ashbourne, and their front yards aren't very big. And we're putting in red oaks. I can see why they would not want a tree in their front yard. That is an oak. It does limit what they can use their front yard for. But they do understand that it is city right away, and so that's, a discussion we need to have as a commission on what we want to do with this certain aspect. I did pull it up on Google Maps here. So this was the tree that was removed a few years ago, and then we replanted one here in their front yard and one back here on the other side of these two driveways instead of splitting the driveway. And, this resident was not happy that we planted. I don't know why this is doing this.
Because it can.
But so right here, this resident 290, and then we also have one at 262.
Do you want to go down to that? Can you go down to that property?
Let's see here. This would be the other address. That does not want a tree behind the sidewalk. And this is on that curve on Ashbourne. So on the, what's that?
Is it Ashburn?
Oh, Ashbourne Place. So this side of the street doesn't have much of a tree lawn, especially one to put an oak tree in. So that's why we're behind the sidewalk here.
How current is that Google Maps? Is that pretty current?
This is 2019.
I was wondering if those oak trees, is the oak tree in front of the red brick house there is they're still there?
I
They're-
can
okay,
tell you.
okay. So would you like us to talk about that now, Brent?
Yeah, we can talk about it now, because, I need a decision to whether or not we plant these trees or not.
Can I add something to that, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may,
Thank you.
Mayor Kessler.
So I received also phone calls from these residents when they didn't like Grant's answer.
These two, just these two?
The two in question, yeah.
Okay,
And Grant made me aware of the fact that he received emails as well. So we got calls and emails. And last night, as you know, so triggered by some recent tree commission questions and about what is a tree lawn, what is not a tree lawn, what's a dog, what's not a dog. Just joking, we didn't talk about dogs. We had the legal opinion that says that we have jurisdiction, of course, over the right of way. Tree lawn is defined two different ways, two different times in our code, two different ways. And whether or not we can, through the commission, force the placement of a tree on the section between the sidewalk and a house. And our city law director's opinion is that the tree commission cannot compel the placement of a tree in that area. The city can, and that's confusing. What is the city? And I know, Jim, I think later on, we're going to talk about, how we're addressing, clarifying the code. Because I feel like I feel a little bit stuck when I get a call from a resident, given that opinion. First off, I'm really interested to have the conversation here at Tree Commission, but I also brought it up at council last night because I wanted to hear council's perspective on it. And we looked at this exact street view and we looked at the other one and just talked about it philosophically. How does council feel about the idea of we have a resident who doesn't want a tree planted in the area between the sidewalk and the house? we can't otherwise here plant in the tree lawn. And council was pretty decisive and unified and not wanting to force the placement of tree in that area. They felt like we should offer it. And if a property owner doesn't want to have a tree in that space, that we shouldn't force it in that space, although we have the right to do it, and everyone acknowledges that. They felt like that was very different from the condition between the curb and the sidewalk. I wanted to share that as a data point, and I know it's also different. I know we've had, I can think of
Two,
other
3, 4,
cases
5, yes.
of property owners not wanting trees in front yards. I think one thing that has triggered this, it's not just kind of this deeper dive that we're doing in the code, it's that these lawns in general are quite shallow. This is like, like when you take a 0.5 photo on your iPhone and everything looks further away. From driving this is a small front yard. It's this particular condition here, I don't know what their backyard looks like. It's a very different interface than even a Dawson or Columbia or some of these other areas where we have some similar conditions. So I just wanted to add that my preference would be to hold off on planting here. I mean, clarify what the rights are and what the policy is going to be going forward. And we can always come back next year if we decide to take a more forceful stance in terms of like what's going on in this area. I do think that this whole conversation keeps on coming up, which is like, what is the right of people between the sidewalk and their house? And it's not consistently exercised. We are all over the city. We have different conditions about what people are doing and not doing, where they're planting trees and not planting trees. And there's a little bit of a lottery in a sense. I mean, I know we are talking about property rights. They're definite, but there are streets where people own right up to the sidewalk. And there are streets where they don't own most of their front yard, like Dawson. And so I think I'm done talking. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling at this point.
Could you offer something smaller?
Jim.
So I appreciate everything the
I mean,
mayor
I
said.
could.
And, in terms of the short-term solution, I agree that we should take the trees out and hopefully preserve them. I think this is a larger issue. By my count, there's 23 streets in Bexley where at least a section has more than 5 feet of right of way on the homeowner's side of the sidewalk. So I think it's an important issue because I think that to simply say that for all those 23 streets that the homeowners can just veto it is also of concern to me because some of those streets, that may be the only place we can plant. As I've talked about, and Susan's talked about with the mayor, I think that our ordinance could be improved here. I also think our process underlying it could be improved where, and unfortunately, process improvements often fall with more work for grant. But for instance, we could have a process where if we were going to plant on any of these 23 streets, we first notified the homeowner that we were going to do it and gave them a chance to come to the tree commission, talk to us about it before they find a tree in their yard. And I realize that's more work for the city, but that might be a possible way for people to feel differently about it. So I think my recommendation for now is the same as the mayor's, which would be that for now we take these trees out. I think we should tell the residents that we're taking them out while we study this, that we haven't made a final decision here, but and then we try to improve our ordinance, try to understand better what our underlying priorities are. And I would welcome a conversation with city council about the consequences. I think it's easy to say when citizens are complaining, let's not do that. But I think it's also useful for the city council to look at what the lost opportunities would be in terms of planning.
So I have a question for you, Mayor. Was the conversation, it was last night, right? Last night. Was it about property rights? Was that the jumping off point for the conversation?
Well, jumping off was I brought it up because I said,
I know that.
We've got some fairly passionate residents here and I feel, like a little uncertain how to handle this situation in my response. I don't want to, so, but it did come down to the sense that like, there is a feeling that the property rights, we acknowledge the property rights are the same, whether or not it's behind the sidewalk or not, in terms of the city's rights.
Right.
But there is a feeling that, that section between the sidewalk and the house is treated, feels like it should be treated differently. Like there is a property, so I guess, yeah, it would be property rights. And also I think they said their perspective on looking at those two was, you know, these seems like fairly, there are plenty of canopy trees around. It's not like this is an area that doesn't have any tree cover. And I think that as we go through this process and look at solutions, there are lots of like, there's two extremes, which is like, we can do whatever the hell we want. There's one extreme, apologize for my French. The other extreme would be like, you know, we're not going to do anything. You could always accommodate all sorts of, you know, you could have a more sophisticated algorithm that like, if there is no canopy cover in the area, then it's treated differently. You could have something where they get notice in advance, like Jim suggests, and they have the ability to come to the tree commission. If they don't want to have it, they at least have to show up and talk about it. You know, they might still have the right to say no, but they still have to come and have the conversation. Like you could do all sorts of sort of in-betweens to try to really encourage canopy. And I, you know, my perspective is not to discourage new canopy. We want new canopy, but it's also, I am sympathetic to the residents that are like, this is where my kids, the only place in the whole property that they can, you know, kick the soccer ball around. And, you know, red oak is not an insubstantial tree over time. So, which is good. I love a red oak. Red oaks are great.
Yeah, I'd like to, well, that's loud. I'd like to piggyback on what Jim and the mayor were saying. And maybe within the ordinance, we can set some sort of parameters and 4 different categories that we think are important to consider. One is the square footage, that's what's left in the front yard. And we find what we think would be a usable, the parameters of what would be useful for us to plant something. Then consider what the neighborhood looks like, what the canopy cover is there, and what the utility systems, how much space there is within the utility, accessibility, et cetera. And then we can, that way we let the paperwork and what we find within our consultation or evaluation, then we can build a case based on that versus not just hurting someone, between disappointing somebody and making something happen that they don't want. Does that make sense?
Would think too that if the people come in and here and we explain to them, I mean, we're trying to create, you know, an LA if you must, and we've looked at each street and we know the dominant tree and we wanted to have it continue. And then you have to understand that the tree will be there, but the resident may move. So somebody else may want the kind of tree. So I think maybe just more have them come in and understand why we do this. And it's free.
It's free, right? Yeah. Sheila, you had something you want to say?
Yes, I think we should be sensitive to the owners and certainly sensitive to our mission. But also as you're deciding and putting parameters together, that properties do change hands. The next owner may wish to have a tree, and are we going to grandfather that decision in with the policy moving forward? So those are all thoughts as you're trying to figure out the best plan.
So Sheila, I have an assignment for you to that point. Would you be able to come to the next tree commission and tell us how often homes change hands? So what's an average? Is it, you know, I think I had told Matt and the mayor before that I did a study on Bexley Park and they change hands every 10 years. So are we going to?
Since I moved in.
Yeah, just as you. Well. Yeah, I mean, I do, you know, we can go on and we need a conclusion, but, right. Yeah, so, yeah, go ahead, Audra.
A brief question, but as she was talking, like, how do you know that a tree can't be touched? You know, in one of these properties, if the city drops a tree in, the next guy comes, he decides, I don't want a tree in my front yard, how do we notify the person? Like, what's the standard gonna be? In a situation like that, if we do put a tree in someone's front yard, is it protected? And how do we
Yeah, well,
communicate
that's
that?
what the mayor says. You can't, once it's in, you can't take it down.
It's protected by code, but it's not, it's an educational thing, to your point.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I
what
think a
I'm
lot
saying.
of people don't realize that the trees in their front yard, and tree commission sees this regularly, that they don't understand that it's a city tree or, or the plantings that they want to put in that area are potentially need review. And so it's tough because unless we're chasing every real estate transfer and then figuring
Right.
out whether, what are the issues this property has? Oh, it's a corner lot? Ugh, better let them know what that's gonna, preview of coming attractions. By the way, corner lots should come.
Well,
with
you
a
know,
warning.
you know the saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? Today. When was the other best time? 20 years ago, right? I mean,
And when's the third best time? 2 years ago.
when they change hands or what?
Sure, exactly.
That doesn't work. Anyway, all right. What else, Grant? So are we gonna have a motion on this or an endorsement of? I think we need a motion on this because, it's a change. It's a change for us. I mean, because other people have come before us and they haven't wanted trees and we've said yes. And now we're saying, we'll think about it or we'll wait. So it's inconsistent with what we've done before, which I don't think is particularly healthy, Mr. Wilson.
Well, I move that the tree commission authorize the removal of the trees.
only
that
one.
grant-
Only one's been planted.
Only one's been
Okay,
planted, yeah.
then I move that the tree commission authorize the removal of the one tree planted with notice to the property owner that this is being done while we study further the issue of these types of plantings.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Does that mean that?
Is there a second? Wait, yep, we need a second before discussion.
Second.
Okay, is there discussion? Mary?
So now I forget what I was gonna ask you. Can we go back in later and plant it?
Well, I think that's part of what we need to work out in terms of our ordinance, because as the mayor said, we don't, if you read the ordinance, it doesn't say that we can direct the planting of trees, although I think there's a question whether our tree planting and maintenance plan can include that, but but we do have the authority clearly to authorize removal of trees, so.
It's ironic, isn't it? Also, I would say to your point, Madam Chair, about the inconsistency,
Right.
I totally appreciate that. I do understand that. I also think one reason I have even more pause on this is that it is a really, especially the one that has not yet gotten planted. If you pull up like the parcel view of that, it's quite different from the other areas that we've had interaction with in terms of limited yard area and just the way that curve happens and compresses the lots. So I think it's a fairly unique condition, if that helps.
Yes.
Helps you sleep. at night.
So Grant, hoping always that the outcome could be more in our favor, I would suggest that you offer the homeowner at 290 Ashbourne the opportunity for you to remove the tree if perhaps her mind has changed. And so that you would remove the tree with the idea that it could be replanted. No assurances either yes, no assurances either no. Because she may feel if it comes back, it would be more of a problem for her a second time than it has been. I mean, I don't,
Yeah, I'll reach out to her and we'll have this discussion with her.
okay. Is there any other discussion? Celeste, Linda, Sheila? Okay, you have your homework assignment, right, Sheila?
Right,
Okay,
right.
Audra, okay,
Got
okay.
it written down.
Yeah, I know, okay. A motion been made and seconded that we allow for the removal of a newly planted tree at 290 Ashburn while the tree commission and the city work through what should I say?
Broader strategic issues.
Okay, the broader strategic issues of the current ordinances and of the current ordinances. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstention? Okay, motion passes. What else, Grant?
That's all I have.
Okay. So you have planted 130 trees and you've only had pushback from 2?
Correct.
It's
Well, we
pretty-
have 70 more to plant, so we're halfway through, but yeah, 2 is a good number.
2 is a good number.
I appreciate the water bags on a number of the trees I've seen planted there. Must have taken some effort, but I'm glad that they're there.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be taken off here shortly, but they're not our bags, they're Yard Barber's bags. So
And are they being watered? Are they
Yep.
being filled with water?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Grant? Should I even ask if the wire cages have been removed?
the top 2/3 of the wire baskets are being removed, yes.
How about the burlap and the
Burlap
roping?
is, yes.
Burlap's
Burlap
being
and twine is being removed as well.
good, better, best.
Swear.
Sure. Anything else for Grant? Mayor Kessler, it's your turn.
I was gonna make a joke about how good thing we didn't remove the wire basket, because now we can just pull that red oak out of the ground and put it somewhere else really easily.
No one would appreciate that joke.
And we are gonna find a home for that 290 Ashbourne red oak.
Well, maybe it won't come out. We'll be hopeful. People don't understand. They don't understand what they're missing.
Yeah. Sometimes. Real quickly, just to update you all, the Stanberry pillars are in the budget proposal for 2025 for to be straightened. And I'm supposed to talk about plantings and right of way, Susan, but you have to remind me what I'm saying about.
Well,
next
you were going to
Stanberry
mention
pillars.
that and the Drexel Circle walls, right? Are in the. budget.
Yes, Drexel
Okay.
Circle walls, but it says plantings and right of way next to Stanberry pillar. Is that?
It- Oh,
that's
well,
just
there was going to be some clarification about the plantings in the right of way, which are between the sidewalk and the curb and behind the sidewalk, and who is to maintain those.
At Stanberry pillars?
Yes,
Okay.
because as you know, Grant, they're kind of messy right now. I mean, the homeowners, sometimes the homeowners are taking care of them. My suggestion would be that they become something that the city oversees.
So they're kind of analogous to like College and Livingston. Or.
No, they're worse.
Or Broad. I mean, they're not analogous to like the Broad.
Right. I mean,
Entryway.
they're, yeah. Anyway, and it could be that they need to have a design planting plan around
Okay.
them. Okay.
Somehow I missed that, so I will,
Okay.
Grant and I will liaise later about that. Drexel Circle walls rebuild are also in our budget for 25. It has not yet been voted on, but it's part of our proposal. And we do have Roosevelt median contract signed with Elena Andrews for design. We're gonna start with a neighborhood meeting, just to involve neighborhoods and neighborhood residents, neighbors, in the process of designing that. And I think Susan, you're gonna help out with that as well and be involved, I
Yes.
believe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Happy to come.
We also have slated the Livingston and College Gateway Enhancement and wanted to see if there are any Tree and Public Gardens Commission members who want to be part of that design process before we bring a proposal to the group.
Audra, would you like to do that?
Oh, can you tell me a little more? And what is the ETA on that?
Those are good questions. So this is that area like at Speedway and Tire Choice where we have columns today. And then there are some plantings actually on the property side where we have a planting easement, both at Speedway and Tire Choice. So the scope is to redesign the area in the tree lawn itself next to the columns, just because we've in general been kind of expanding those planting areas a little bit to make the gateways stick out a little bit more, but then also redesign the planting easement side behind the sidewalk, both at Tire Choice and Speedway. Timeline, I think we're gonna just be working on design through the winter, not intensely, but just kind of consistently. Try to bring it back to Tree and Public Gardens Commission, hopefully in time for spring planting.
Who's doing the design? Elena?
Elena Andrews, yeah.
Oh, great. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And then,
Does that mean that I would need to meet during business hours between 8 and 6? Because I'm in Newark.
I think, we can figure out how to accommodate,
Okay.
keeping you,
Great.
keeping you
And
involved with that.
I will probably have some more flexibility the closer we get to Christmas.
Okay, awesome. And we're meeting actually tomorrow morning with Elena to go over some of these projects, so I'll make sure that she has that information. And then Fair Avenue refresh, we have signed the design proposal for that. Paige, Dee Dee, Ellen, and Grant, I believe, are part of that design working team.
Yeah. Paige Crane, Dee Dee Glimpsher,
Yep.
Ellen,
Ellen
Grant.
Bowden and Grant.
and Elena. Right, Elena's the designer.
Elena's the
for-
designer, yep.
Right, okay.
So that's,
You've done well, 3 for 3.
those are we're also working on the Bexley Police Department parking lot perimeter. That's more of an internal process. Unless anyone wants to get involved in that, you're all welcome. It will not, I don't think it impacts the community gardens, but obviously it's adjacent to. It will include anti-groundhog devices.
No way.
I'm kidding, that's true. Bexley Square Pocket Park, design team, I think we're waiting for something back from Edge on that, so I'm gonna get an update on that tomorrow. And then Gould Calming Circles. I think we've been asked to review the design of that,
Mhm.
and I'm
The plant material.
plant material.
And Grant has pointed out there's a manhole cover in each of them. Yes. And we're comparing it with the city of Columbus's to the east, which now looks pretty good considering that for 20 years they looked terrible and ours don't look so great. So it's a war out there.
It is.
Yeah.
Competition's great.
Competition's great. Okay.
So how would you like us to work on that? Is that something that,
Does anybody want to work on that on their own, just to go look at it and compare them to city of Columbus?
I can do that on one of my walks.
Okay, take your dog.
Well, but my dog won't fertilize anything.
Okay,
Oh.
more treats. And I thought maybe you'd want to update, or you and Matt would want to update the commission on where you are with the landscape staff design consultant.
yes,
Yes. If 3 applicants, I've interviewed one of them. I'm going to interview the other 2 after Thanksgiving. And then meet with the mayor and we'll update you probably first, second week of December. And then I did have a resident reach out, and volunteer to, catalog all of the city right-of-way trees for us. I don't know if, David Green wanted to get more involved in the city and asked if he could help. So. I don't-
Oh, he's got
I don't know if
tree
we need
plotter.
that, but
Oh.
tree plotter and so just to let you know.
So, like,
He's looking to get
club and-
involved.
okay, good.
Yeah, as a former city planner, so. Mhm.
Bexley neighborhoods.
Memorial tree policy, we've been working with the Community Foundation on coming up with a standard for when people want to donate. Right now, it's a little haphazard. Sometimes it's gone through the rec department, sometimes it's gone through the tree department, sometimes it's gone through the Community Foundation. And we've had some issues with sort of miscommunication about where the tree is, what can and can't happen. And so we are working to unify that. Jim made me aware I had forgotten about the plaque. It was a plaque standard, essentially, a plaque standard.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make sure to integrate that, but essentially the concept is a very high level. If you want to donate a tree in memory or honor of somebody, and you don't care if it has a plaque, then you can select an upcoming planting. So street trees would be eligible, as would trees in parks. And basically that donation would be recognized through an online mapping system that would say this is who was donated for. If you want a plaque, it needs to be in a park, not in a tree lawn. The plaque would have a standardized design. The policy that was about 10 years ago, I think that policy talked about a brass.
Yeah,
plaque
I
and
took pictures
stone
of
on
this here. I
limestone.
can pass it down.
So we'll likely just affirm that. I did ask, I think I asked Hallie to look into engraving stone, but you
Yeah,
pointed out
yes.
that would seem sort of funereal, which it might. Like to
Yeah.
look at different options. Whatever it is, we don't currently have a standard response. Well, I know that apparently we do. We just haven't been following it maybe. So I'll stop talking because I'm getting myself in trouble. We're going to look back at that work and
Yeah.
incorporate it. The real big takeaway is if someone wants to donate a
I have
tree, we're going to ask them to go through the Community Foundation. The funds will go into Bexley Beautification Fund. The Community Foundation will organize the creation of the plaque to the standards specified, most likely the historic standards specified, beautiful. And then that will be affixed in the park, and it has some standards as to, reasonable expectations for warranty, maintenance, et cetera. So once that is at a final draft stage or at a draft stage, we'll circulate it around to all of the stakeholders. Yes.
The price for the plaque, is that owned by the owner, the person, donator?
So there's a minimum donation required in order for it to be a memorial tree or a tree in honor of. And so that's a higher minimum donation if there's a plaque associated with it. I think right now we have working numbers of 500 for a tree without a plaque and at least 1,000 for a tree with a plaque.
Some questions for the mayor?
I have a couple more things.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I can take questions now. I have
No,
other.
no.
You gave me an other, which is
Did
a
I give you
mistake on
other?
your
Yes,
part.
I did give you other.
But, so I do want to say under other, also in our budget proposal for council is additional funding for our street tree program, adding another $20,000 to that would bring it to 100,000. That would enable us to start to do some of that additional infill that we had talked about. And we also have budget for invasive species removal in Schneider Park and along the bridges. So at Maine and Livingston and, I imagine Clifton. I'm not sure that we quoted Clifton. What did we quote? Just Livingston. Okay. So never mind, just Livingston for now. We have funding to clean up it's just so much encroachment in that area. Clean that up and remove invasive species. We do have invasive species removal funding for Jeffrey Park, actually in this year's budget, but it's going to be carried forward because they're waiting for the finalization of that tree management plan. So those are some of the tree specific funding items. I think we have more than that. But I didn't finish making my list before you called on me. So also I do want to just bring this up just to think about. Some of the comments that I hear during review of applications are really similar from application to application. And the way that ARB handles that is they have just a standard conditions that they'll apply to almost every property. So for example, that there be a warranty, that there be the wire cage removed or burlap, whatever it is you come up with, that can be something that you can we can communicate in advance to applicants to expect that. It can be just known so that it doesn't have to be always a topic of conversation.
I think that'd be great. I think that'd be
Yeah.
great. So why do we keep bringing it up? Because all this information is on, to Grant's point, their application. So, but what do we see at Cohatch?
Right. You see the same issues.
Right.
So I think, I think if you just know that, I'm not saying don't bring it up. I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily require your call. You can debate whatever you want, but a debate, a topic of debate, it could be something that's just a rote
It's on video.
conversation. It's on video. And then the other thing I would be very cautious about is, any disparaging comments about contractors, specific contractors or companies, or saying that things aren't done to a certain standard or that we don't like how they're done. We actually do have some liability in that, I believe. If we're saying things about contractors and it feels like it's being disparaging to them. It's also, I just want to be sensitive to sometimes you have large companies with lots of different people doing lots of different things. You have somebody coming in from that company. Yes, they work for that company. They don't necessarily own it. They're not accountable for everything the company's ever done. And so I want to be really cautious about putting them in a position where they're getting defensive about the work product of their company. That is something that I think is best handled. And I know that nobody does anything perfectly, But I think it's best handled by talking to staff afterwards and saying, look, I understand so-and-so is doing such and such work, you know, at this point in time. Can you please touch base with them? These are some things we've seen in other projects to be aware of. We will do our best to pay attention to that. I know that we're not perfect at that. I also think that during the review process, when you enter that into the record, it complicates the decision that you're making. So I would be careful about specific comments about specific contractors or designers or any, you know, and I'm not trying to, just a thought I had listening.
Hey, Jim, you had
Not trying
something
to
to say.
offend.
Well, I mean, I do think that, that planning's be in conformity with Ohio Nursery Association standards is sort of become the norm for approval. And so I can work with Karen to figure out that language and where it goes in the application process or however it's best done.
But would one also suggest that then all the other kind of things that are being protected, the tree protection, the bricks, the, you know, all that should be in this, you know, kind of standard?
Tree protection's in the ordinance, I believe.
Yeah, but yes. Tell me
It's also
more.
in the application.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's the point, is that the application is not 3 paragraphs. And building the house is probably the priority. The other things maybe come secondary. So if we have a chance to visibly tell them, I mean, I walked by there today, they're not making the driveway, they're cutting the corners. That brick is gonna have to be done. So to mention it to him, I think it only benefits everybody personally.
I'm not saying not to mention it.
Oh.
I'm saying that if you guys agree on some standard language that you'll be using,
Okay,
then there's never a question. So it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be a topic of like, well, let's talk to you about like, do you understand this or that? Be like, you know, every member knows that when it comes time for the decision, we're gonna say, okay, just so you know, we talked to everybody about this. This is an important factor. Here's Ohio Nursery Association, sure, but specifically tree protection plan, the ways, these are some things we often see. We're gonna put this in our record of decision. So it doesn't commingle that with your actual review of the landscaping, if that makes sense. You're reviewing the landscape design, and then you can have that boilerplate, which is what is your standard, and it is an excellent opportunity to educate applicants. I totally agree with you.
okay,
And I think that that's used, other boards do that as well. But
Okay.
it's kind of part of a normal checklist, so they know that they don't have to like. Right, yeah.
so it's just more, you just read this laundry list then.
Every facts and findings and decision of the board includes this.
Makes sense.
Okay,
And this is not in the spirit of criticism. I'm just
no,
like,
no, I
something
think
has to be
it's
learned.
good, but I also, and of course, you're wise enough to understand why one would do it.
Yes,
Yes.
I get it.
Yes, okay.
And then one last thing, and I
Yes.
swear I'm not.
I got it.
It's all right, Mayor Kessler.
On that, if I could, if
Yeah.
I may.
You
May.
may.
Thank you. I like to think in terms of, like, application, of all of these things. Because I was the contractor on the back end and I would see, you know, I wouldn't necessarily read all the things that came before me. I got a contract and I executed the contract, right? And whether or not that contractor plants to Ohio Nursery Association rules or they remove wire basket cages, I would be willing to bet a lot of money, no contractor goes back and reads a record of decision from a Tree and Public Garden Commission, right? And we put that on the applicants. But the applicants are hiring a contractor to build the building, and then and then that contractor's hiring a landscaper to plant the plants. Now, yes, the applicant has ultimate responsibility. I agree. But do they oversee that process of planning? So I'm thinking through things over here, and all that to say is if we really want it to have it be done and then to get down to the contractor level. I mean, I think with new, you know, I can talk through the mayor, but with, you know, we don't have a ton of these projects that come through, and it might almost be, you know, they have to pull a landscape permit for a new build on a house. And then as a part of that landscape permit packet, we give them the record of decision and education and everything we want them to know. That way it makes it to the landscaper, because they're so far down in the chain that when all this stuff happens now and they get hired 18 months from now, when the job's already done or when the project's ready to be planted, like who knows if they ever actually get the information that we talk about here today. So that's just a thought.
Well, so Matt, when we met last week, you talked a little bit about having a contractor meeting, right? And is that where you were going with your,
Yeah, and reaching out, yep,
right?
part of the
And a-
education to contractors, but yeah.
And a pre-application conference.
Right.
So where we have all the disciplines and even before they're finalizing everything with these types of projects, like you said, there's only a few of them a year, but they're the ones that get all the attention. And so I think like, you know, so you know, okay, you want to demolish a property, like here's what to expect. And that includes landscaping. That includes a lot of other things as well.
Right.
And constant reminders as the contractors start doing.
Yeah, and it's even the pre-application meeting we have are with the architects and maybe the developer, right? Or the developer or the builder, but I'm talking, I want a meeting, I want the landscaper, the contractor on the end,
Right,
have to
no.
pull a permit for a new build just for the landscaping. If we really want the person that's gonna be doing the work of the company to
We
get
do.
this information, I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, Jim.
Well, I think we've talked it from time to time that 1026.16, which is the new build ordinance, actually probably needs to move into a different part of the Bexley code and could be expanded in a variety of ways. So I think that this might be part of a larger revision of that ordinance. And, you know, obviously there are clearly ways to clarify it to accomplish the underlying goal without making it onerous for people who, you know, every other year want to do a new build in Bexley.
That's right. Yeah, and I want to affirm what you were saying, Jim. I think you were spot on in calling out that ordinance was specifically designed in part to not lose otherwise viable shade like mature trees, but also maintain that buffer. And so there was not guidance from us that it was okay, well, maybe, I don't think, to remove the buffer, and we would not have done that. The code does give remedies to the tree commission in the city. We are not providing that information, like, don't worry about this, because, you know, I wrote it, I believe in it, like, and it was written for irresponsible, and it was written in situations where you have somebody coming in and they aren't really they're not paying attention to the context of the neighborhood, and they're not gonna have to live with that situation in the future. And so I don't necessarily think that applies in this instance, but I think that we care that that is followed, and we, you know, it's like a process with so many tentacles everywhere that we're constantly reining it in. I think we have some really excellent process improvement coming. So even as we're working on revising that, I think we shall have better results going forward. Finally, sorry, and I'll end on this very quickly. I know that I heard that we had outreach from a neighbor in this latest case that had some concerns about this latest application. If tree commission members want to go and meet with somebody or hear from them, it has to be a actually posted meeting. It has to be published. It has to be open to the public, and if it's on site, and it has to be open to all the tree commission members in order to maintain that, you know, the transparency and the sunshine law requirements that we have. Also, I know Mark had made a fairly rigid statement that you shouldn't even drive past a property. He walked that back. He basically said you shouldn't talk to someone outside of the hearing, and you shouldn't have access to places that you don't have access to as the normal public. So if you're walking down the street, if you're walking down the sidewalk, that's fair game. If you're talking to an applicant or somebody who can testify at the hearing, has standing, you shouldn't be doing that talking to them about the case, except for in the context of this room, unless a separate meeting has been scheduled. So if you guys get that outreach, you say, you know, we really would like that. That would be great. It's nothing to stop you from reaching out to Susan and saying, can we schedule a formal on-site look at this project? And we can do that. We can accommodate that.
So Mayor, we have new commission members
Yeah.
and we don't have all the rules to share with them.
Oh,
So
fair.
we should figure out how we want to share all those rules, because
Mhm.
they feel threatening in a way
Yeah.
and stringent and sometimes unsatisfying, I would have to say. So I think that we
Yep.
need to give not only what the rules are, but the context, and then how, again, if the whole commission wanted to walk that property, you could get approval, I think the decisions would be better on something like this,
fair.
something, yeah. So let's work towards that.
Okay.
So now we're going to move to old business, which also is kind of a mayor-ish discussion because Audra and Mary have been walking around Montrose at the direction of the mayor to look at new opportunities.
Request, not
Yes.
direction.
Right, well, direction's sort of a neutral word.
So are we gonna need to be voting? I'm gonna try to,
On,
on this issue or anything else?
of what issue? Was there an issue?
No, are we voting? I'm gonna try to leave. I didn't wanna.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think that Jim and Karen are going to work together, or Jim and Karen Matt, on some boilerplate language, I call it, I guess, that would be inclusive of our general considerations, irrigation, tree planting standards, brick, you know, whatever.
I noticed how you slipped irrigation in there.
Yeah. I mean, whatever those are, and then bring it back in next month. So I don't think there's anything to vote on that, Linda.
Our quarterly meeting that we're gonna try to get together with the other organizations.
No, I was just going to ask for feedback from our commission on topics that I could share with them that are of interest to us or importance to us. So I think the next up is probably Audra and Mary, and I shared that with Grant. I had a chance to share your information with Grant, Audra. So why don't you guys go ahead?
Let you lead since you did all the
Okay,
work.
sure. Grant, unfortunately. I wish that I would have I did not have time in my work schedule. I didn't even reach out because I didn't have time, that we could have talked. So, I mean, Mary and I went and toured the property. We looked at it. I think at the request of the mayor, he wanted to add some tree material in or look for opportunities to add in some tree material. So Mary and I walked the property just to get an idea of what it looked like, the status, and where any openings might exist. So that's what this came out of. I mean, as the person who knows trees, loves trees, I know there are 1,000 things that you think of. I mean, there's, a dozen trees behind these suggestions that I could have made based on any number of factors. So I feel like this is, I don't know, the first lob onto the field for grins and giggles, but so that's what we did. So this is, just looking at it, I saw opportunities. There's a key on the little write-up here. Do you see the write-up? There's a Word document attached to this. So basically, go ahead and jump in if you want to too.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Okay, so I circled the things that look like places where we could add new material. I noted the Nutilius, which also, I have a Nutilia in my front yard in the tree berm as well. It looks lovely. I'm excited about it. And then there are a few X's based on what the trees look like. A couple of them were damaged. There's a calorie repair still at the entrance to the playground on the east side there. And then there are a couple of very mature red buds on the south side of the lot. The other trees looked in good shape. On the north side on the west side of the lot, there's another tree that I thought could potentially be marked for removal. It's a very lopsided tree. There are no power lines above it. It looks like it sustained some damage. And it basically looks like a brush pointing towards it's a hedge maple, actually. It was listed as red maple and tree plotter, but it looks a little misshapen. So anyway, these are my suggestions. I don't know if,
Why
how
don't
you
go
make
through your suggestions?
decisions.
We'll go through your suggestions so that we.
I like to add in variety. I
Okay.
like ornamental features on trees, particularly smaller trees. I think they add some interest. What I noticed were there were a lot of, we went, for the first time we went in early October in early November, and there were still some trees on. There's a lot of yellow in the fall kind of palette. So I thought, an obvious choice would be to add in some red, which is why you see things like the smoke trees coming up. Have we actually planted Cotinus abuvatus in the city? Have you considered that? Is that a tree you would even think about?
I hadn't really thought about it. Again, that would require a vote from tree commission
Okay,
to allow that.
okay. Well,
Would
so
you be against it or for it or neutral? Okay, well, me either.
It's a
Okay.
native tree. It's a great tree. It looks gorgeous in the fall. It would probably need to be limbed up a bit. It's a smoke tree. You would need to make sure that you get a single stem specimen because otherwise you're gonna end up with a shrub or a colonizing shrub. But the smoke tree is a little bit different than like the cotinus. However you say it, the Cocagria, the smoke shrub that you see around Bexley. So it's a great tree, has lots of colors in the fall.
You said cotinus?
I didn't list any of the botanical names on here. It's a smoke tree. I can list the botanical names.
I like to nerd it up and look stuff up whenever you guys say things so I can
Okay.
learn.
Well, Mayor, the
down
wildfire
there.
black gum tree
Yeah.
is the Nyssa sylvatica.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was wondering that myself. I saw that in a couple spots in central Bexley. Looks great, like in a tree berm. It's right next to St. Catherine's. They look fantastic. They've got to be wildfires. They're a smaller stature. We should have more of them in the city, but I was a little confused why it was there because it's under a power line.
So
Yeah.
do you think there's a chance for you and Grant and Mary to go over this list before the next tree commission meeting? And maybe the mayor can look at those X's and O's that are not for the football huddle on Saturday, but
Well,
around.
can I ask this? If I could, I would, if you have the time, I would be happy to go over this, because I'm just kind of curious, just in general, as a tree enthusiast and a resident of South Bexley, but, I mean, is this, is the repetition in these spaces, is that more or less than as the arborist of Bexley you would consider?
I think there's a rationalized on the Montrose side
Mm,
that prevents me from digging in that area.
that could be, yeah.
So I'm gonna.
There's a couple spots that are
Yeah.
obviously
I'm gonna
there.
have you guys hold that. Jim has to run in a minute and he had a
Oh.
couple of things to say and then we'll
Yeah.
come back to you. Okay.
So I just wanted to quickly report on the planning and maintenance plan. We're continuing to work on it. Susan laughed at me last year when I said I'd have it done by April, and that laughter was well deserved. But we.
That's
hope to-
unkind. Yeah.
I would say where we last month, I think it was, had our conversation about diversity or monoculture or however you want to characterize it. What I believe Susan and I heard out of that conversation was that we should be looking for a street or two to try diverse plantings. And so that's the direction we're moving. But if you think that's the wrong direction, we would love to hear it before we present a plan. The rest of it we're working on and we'll get back to you. And the other piece that I was reporting on was the kind of came up in Grant's report about the tree lawn and plantings behind the sidewalk. And I think this was mentioned, but we're going to meet with Mark Fishel, the city attorney here, I think the 6th or the 9th or something of December, and try to see what we want to do in terms of the ordinance, whether we want to change it, clarify it, live with it the way it is, but we'll report back on that.
So thinking about what you just said and the variety of species that you're suggesting, it could be that this is the first trial run for a variety of trees. Maybe that it works both to your point of wanting or seeing the opportunity for more trees to be planted and our baby steps into a more diverse street tree culture.
And I just want to say, just in glancing over your document and the work that you guys did on it, it's great. It's really, really interesting. Hard work. Thank you. I love it.
So, and I do think, Grant is the key to understanding so much of gas lines, power lines, utilities, that if there's an opportunity to walk with him, I know your schedule is manic, so.
Yeah.
Letting you know that.
Brandon doesn't know anything about fair schedules.
Well, we won't be planting them like in the next month, so.
Yeah.
Time to.
Well, I'll look and see what the utilities are. I know on Remington, we were going to plant a bunch of trees on the Remington side, but we ended up planting them in the schoolyard, the tulip poplars that are up there. So I can't remember why we chose to do that instead of doing it between a curb and sidewalk.
Yeah.
But, and
Okay,
then we can get back to that, yeah.
okay. And then can we just look real closely, because I think Matt can be helpful on this lack of tree protection at Cohatch. Can you go through that? And I can send out some tree commission questionnaire. Can you pull up those photos?
Thanks, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Which ones? Oh, Kovacs.
There's those first ones there, right there, okay? Mary, did you want to?
Tree abuse. So, you know, just the fact that, you know, I think we had talked to them already once about protecting the trees.
Well, you can see the protection right there on the ground.
For the sidewalk?
Yeah, no, the orange fencing is just. got it.
That was never around a tree.
Well,
That was around a power box or a.
it had
power-
aspirations.
It had, right, right. Yeah, it's just waiting to get into high school, right?
Everything's gone now, but you know, I don't know what the impact will be to those trees, but.
Yeah, a lot of the CMU block and stuff, but it's back up. So the tree protection's back up. It's down on one side because they had to pour the concrete sidewalk back. But we'll do a better job from the code enforcement to try to keep new builds like this and commercial builds on our list.
They were told about the tree protection.
I don't know, that was before my time, but when I knew about it, I called them directly and they took care of it.
After this or before this?
That was the same picture that you showed me in our meeting, and then I texted the superintendent from our meeting, and then they fixed it. And then I drove by the next day and saw that it
You
was
guys
fixed.
reviewed their
So-
landscape plan.
Right.
I don't see a world where you didn't tell them about the tree protection.
We did. It was, I
Right,
made,
right.
again, Mayor, I made a comment.
I know, that's what I
verbally.
said. I can't
Grant
imagine.
said, and he said it's on their landscape plan. Grant went, remember, he was the one that the city went back to help with the
Right,
pruning,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, the two
Was there tree
questions, sorry.
protection up during that
What
time?
can we do better, right,
No.
next time?
And now
So
you'll
this-
have it in the facts and findings.
Right.
So this triggered the change that they will not be issued their building permit until they sign a document and review the actual checklist from the tree protection plan and upload it back into their building permit.
I
So
think
that,
this is so egregious, honestly, that I would add to that I would make them, I don't even know what the right word for it is.
I would
Provide
make
a-
them put
Provide
in,
a bond or something. as
in
part of their-
escrow,
Yeah, an escrow. And-
escrow account of, you know,
And if in the next 2
$2,000.
years, the tree starts to show signs of failure, that they will forfeit or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This was after though. I sent her pictures initially and then you two spoke and then I saw it again later. This was probably what, maybe a week
or a
ago?
week ago. Well, it's right before we met last week and we met.
yeah, when we met last week, then I
Matt
got a hold,
right away got on the phone.
I got a
with the
hold of them.
superintendent. Yeah.
Put it back up. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing Matt has clarified is that, tree protection and code for the tree protection is under building. So if we see this, call Matt, I guess, text Matt. Yeah, you know.
Or C-click fix it.
You can
Which
do
I'm
that.
trying to get away from, but yeah.
What did you, what did you
I
say?
need to go to.
Bexley Base, where you take a picture of it and you can send it directly to the code enforcement
Yeah.
officer.
We just double
Yeah.
down on Bexley Base.
So, you know, I think we should all feel excited that Matt has only been here 5 months and he's willing to take this on. It can only do good things for us. So.
Thank you,
so,
Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yep,
Matt.
we'll continue to do our best and I will look into the escrow thing. That's a great idea.
The tree protection plan is a code. It's in our code, right?
Mhm.
Let's. Well, we'll talk about this. I have some ideas
Okay.
about.
Well, you know, it's
rigorous
interesting because their behavior before they even came to the tree commission has sort of been, you know, the same pattern, you know, throughout the building process, I would say. Yeah.
The contractor?
Yeah,
Cause they went and the trees were, they put the building into the tree branches and then we told them that they had to prune the tree branches back and then they just hacked them back to wherever they felt it was necessary. And then we had to go back through and reprune the trees in the beginning of this.
do you know if their boring was horizontal?
Boring?
Boring, they bored through the roots on that tree.
They dug.
They dug?
They didn't bore.
Yeah, I don't think
do you
they
see-
bored.
Do you see where the patch is? That's where they had to tie into the city, our storm line.
Oh,
Right
I
there.
do,
See-
I do.
See the patch
Yeah,
in
I do,
the,
I
so
do,
yeah.
I do. I
But they
thought you
ran,
said
but this,
patch.
but their the storm pipe goes under the sidewalk. That's why the sidewalk was removed. Well, yeah, so that's why the sidewalk's removed, that storm line goes under the sidewalk.
Well, there is something in our code that all the boring has to be horizontal, correct? No,
I don't think so.
I just read that, so
Opposed to.
I guess so.
Huh.
I mean, I don't know. That's what it says. I'll find it, Grant.
I've never heard
I was
that.
not boring, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it's horizontal or it's
Up and
diagonal.
Diagonal.
up or
Or
down.
maybe up and
All
down.
sorts of geometry.
All sorts of direction. Yeah.
If it's geothermal, it's vertical, I would think.
Around horizontal. You know, large field. Got a parking lot. You need a large.
Okay. We will save. So the last thing on the agenda was that, as you may know, the mayor has convened the group of commission chairs and vice chairs along with city staff to talk about issues, topics, concerns, compliments that are kind of affect us all. So Jim and I are chairing the meeting in December and felt we could ask tree commission members if they had topics that they would like to see us discuss so that we can be representatives of yours. Commission it could be, and I make these up. It could be, do all three commissions plus the city have an interest in historical preservation or in communication or in revision of ordinances or communication or, you know, whatever it could be, you know, liaisons to other commissions or some kind of monthly posting of what, you know, somebody's done. The whole purpose of this is to make sure that we understand what they're doing, they understand what we're doing, and that we can share our concerns. I mean, let's just say that those oak trees were fabulous. They were in great condition. You had, you know, they were 150 years old, 200 inches of canopy. Could the house been sited any different? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. It's hypothetical, but it would be a question worth
They
asking.
couldn't be imprisoned for more than 30 days. I was joking with Matt over here, I was like, we could point out to them that they can't be imprisoned for more than 30 days plus.
It's a,
That's right.
There are good penalties.
There are good penalties.
It's
right.
the desire, it's where's the will.
Yeah, well,
You came up with a great idea tonight, Susan, that I think we should talk about at that commission meeting, which is we have inconsistently offered training for new members. And Audra, I would offer that to you.
Mary,
and
Charlie,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
What's that? Oh, yeah, Charlie.
Charlie.
You as well. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just to go over sunshine laws and public records and, where the code is and what it says. So happy to do that. It's typically been ARBs that members, but tree commission has been morphing more and more into doing more review work, which is kind of what we're talking about tonight.
I could stand a review. I mean,
Okay, great.
yeah,
But
I'm embarrassed to
the
say it,
blind
but
spot is that every time we do that, we pull out all these materials, we just talk. We don't have a sheet, to your point, like,
Oh.
and it breeds confusion because believe it or not every attorney says the same thing. So like, right,
Mhm.
shocking. You'll have one workshop where one attorney says one thing and another workshop where the other attorney is more stringent or whatever. So it'd be nice to have like just a formal, here's what, as a quasi judicial member.
Handbook.
Even just a single sheet.
Yeah.
Here's how you do that. Yeah, just
Yeah.
cheat sheet, because what we were talking about like talking to applicants and blah, blah, blah.
I'm familiar with that because of the BMPA.
Gotcha. Okay.
because of the what?
The Benson Minority Hearing
Okay.
Loss and having to deal with the school board so much.
Oh, interesting.
Those are not so many.
But you know, like to Matt's quick clarification yesterday, it was so helpful. It was so helpful. But I also, you know, I also had some commission members email me and say, well, where is that? I don't know where it is. Where is it, man?
Where's what?
I don't know.
Oh, the information that you sent, like if you go to the property, you have to stay in the public right of way. You can't go onto the private property. You can't talk with other
Oh,
people.
gotcha. Yeah, that's in probably like a 1,000-page binder. The sunshine law is probably buried in there. That
Well,
was
it's
Mark, that
case-
was,
It's in case
case
law. It's
law.
like-
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
It's not,
right.
we don't have a single page.
right,
We don't.
right.
Yeah.
To that point. That's-
Yep, I agree.
So,
A single page of things that you're gonna get potentially legally prosecuted for would be helpful.
You are not, you do not have to worry about being legally prosecuted as an individual.
Or cited.
No, you're fine.
no,
I mean, unless you're like
Yeah.
breaking the law.
No.
Like trespassing or I don't know. No, that's not, the concern is that the process could get compromised. So an example of that would be if the applicant hated your decision. And then they go and they appeal the decision and they say, look, they met with, this didn't happen in this situation. We're making up a fake situation. They met with, you know, somebody who was upset about this application and looked at it from this property, and that was outside of the hearing because you're kind of almost like a judge and it was improper. Therefore, I want the whole thing thrown out because they were biased. They were receiving information and they would have a good case. So that's in a situation where it's not like you are individually liable, it's that the process is potentially compromised. And it's just a weird, you know, if council has the same issue there, when you're a legislator, you don't have to worry about that, but as soon as you start to sit in an appeal body or as a reviewer, you have a totally different set of expectations. So I think it would be good to have it in writing and make it clear.
well, just, you know, I mean, we have,
15 years.
well, it took us 15 years to get the process down of the discussion. So what's another 15 years, right? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
See you in December 18th.